something beautiful in COSMA, that each one can share what they know, and in the process, we all learn together and grow together. So I have, over a period of time, I started business in the year 1983, and I'm basically from Chennai. And I came to Bangalore straight after college. My brother guided me into business, and I started business in a paying guest accommodation with all MDS Switchgear Limited. For those of you who know, they were manufacturers of MCBs and distribution boards. I used to keep those under the bed, and then on my motorcycle go out and market the products. So started off with trading and then got onto manufacturing. And one of the things which I do recall is that throughout my journey, I have always been associated with one learning process or the other. 84, I came across this advertisement for a training program called MILT, and it was 1,500 rupees in those days. And with my hands shaking, I called my brother to take permission to join that program. And it was one of the best foundations for learning that I laid for my life. And ever since, there's always been one or the other, program in terms of now the latest being Rajiv Talreja of he's got a beautiful program called PACE. And then he's got an advanced program called MBA, and I've gone through all of that. And in the process, what has happened is my business has also evolved. This is a sincere, attempt from my side to share with you whatever is the crux of the learning which I have. And I've sort of put it into 3 steps, which is very important for us to go through in order to simplify and scale our switchboard business. And whatever I'm talking about in terms of switchboard business is equally applicable for any other business, because ultimately the path is the same. It's just a little tweaking which will probably need to be given from time to time, and then we take it forward. So thanks again to COSMA for having enabled this, and I'm very happy to be taking you through this journey. Now, the first step is that we look at, what are the kind of entrepreneurs that there are in this scenario. The first is an accidental entrepreneur who just stumbles upon entrepreneurship. When I was in college, I never dreamt that I'm going to be an entrepreneur. But it just so happened that when the opportunity came, I grabbed the opportunity, and then I became an entrepreneur. Thanks to the fact also that I had very close friends, 5 of them to 6 of them in specific, who were there with me in college, and all of them were from business families. I was from a doctor's family, and that sort of rubs off. You get inspired by one another, and when the opportunity came, I jumped at it. And then over a period of time, you sort of keep polishing the aspect of the kind of an entrepreneur that you are. And then you start understanding that an entrepreneur is a person who really goes out there and solves a problem. And for that, he has to understand what is the need, what is the desire, and what are the problems that a particular segment of society is facing, whom he has committed himself to serving. And this, in order for him to do this, he keeps improving on his knowledge, his skills, and his capabilities to solve this problem. And then you have the coincidental entrepreneur, who is typically the second generation entrepreneurs. Some of them wanted to be an entrepreneur. Some of them may have got a little forced to become an entrepreneur. And as the journey progresses, now, whether you're an accidental entrepreneur or a coincidental entrepreneur, one thing is very, very commonplace, and that is we assume that we know why we are there in the business. Sometimes it becomes a kind of a habit of going to the office every day, coming back, that we don't think as to what really is the purpose behind going to office and doing this. We are all so busy in doing what, meeting all the challenges of day-to-day activities, so on and so forth, that this, aspect of having to stop review, and realign the direction in which we are going becomes a very important step, which quite a number of us, in my experience and my understanding, we tend to assume that we know. And that is the place where, business doesn't really seem to be going in the right direction. So let's delve into this a little bit more to understand what exactly I mean, and how this is going to impact what is the other ways for us to think and take things forward. So what many people who have studied this problem and who have arrived at is, they've come across this golden circle, it's called. The center or the core of what you need to be looking at is the why of your business, or the purpose of your business, the reason you're doing what you're doing. Now, I can't overemphasize how important this is, because unless and until you know the purpose, you don't get your vision, you don't get the what of your business, and what are the things you need to be doing in order to be successful. And only with the purpose and understanding the what of your business will you then be able to come to the how of your business, which is your strategy, which is continuously, something which you need to be adapting to the market conditions and taking it forward. You have to keep thinking about it year after year. In fact, 45 days after 45 days, ideally. And you got to keep looking at understanding, hey, is there a better opportunity for me? Is there something more that I can do? So on and so forth. So what's very, very important is that we should not be assuming that we know. We have to keep going back and understanding whether we are indeed on track or not. So just to emphasize this a little bit more further, there's this person by name Simon Sinek, and I really admire him. In fact, if you go into the YouTube and you type in his name, you'll see a number of his videos, and each one of them are a masterpiece. He's a person who's really thought through in depth what is required for an entrepreneur to be a successful entrepreneur, and he has shared his talks on several stages across the world. He's written a beautiful book which says Start with Why, and that's a book which I'd really recommend that each one of us pick up and read. What he says is that you take a company like Apple. Now, when you look at a person who's using an Apple Mac as against using a Dell or a ThinkPad or whatever you have, the perception of the general persons are that a guy using a Mac, he's different. He's here to disrupt the world. He's a dynamic personality. Now, I say this because this is the way Apple communicates to the market, communicates to the world, that this is what they stand for. This is their purpose. They want to give something different to the world. They want to ensure that the people using a Mac are given so much facility that they are able to disrupt the world in whatever they are, whatever is the area of value addition which they are doing. So what Simon Sinek says is that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So, I'd like each one of us to go back into our own businesses and reflect that, are we selling what we do, or are we selling why we do it? When Mahatma Gandhi announced the Quit India movement, people did not join because of what he said, but people joined the Quit India movement because why he said it. Similarly for Satyagraha or Sarvodaya, the well-being of everybody. So this is the kind of philosophies which people buy into, and this is something which we need to understand and apply in our businesses as well. You go take the latest what Sadhguru of the Isha Foundation from Coimbatore is doing. At an age of 65 plus, he is on a motorcycle riding 30,000 kilometers. He has started from London. He is somewhere on the way right now. And if you go into YouTube and type Sadhguru, you will be able to see all his videos as well, and the progression of his Save Your Soil movement. He has made it a movement. He has taken it upon himself as a mission, because he feels and he understands that the soil on the earth's surface, if we continue to pollute it, then it's probably going to be lasting only for another 60 years. And he wants us, therefore, to live in a conscious planet. He wants us to do that, because then we can grow better crops, and mankind can probably exist for some more centuries to come. Now, this, when he takes it up as a mission, you should see the videos where so many people across the country, from London to India, the way he stops at different locations, engages with the government personalities, engages with the public, conducts road shows, and all those people pay attention to him, come there to listen to him, not because of what he is saying, but why he is saying it. So this is something which is very important for us to understand. Even in our business, we need to understand why we are doing what we are doing. Like if you take power factor quality correction, you can say that you're in the power factor correction business, or you can say that you're in a power quality improvement business, so that you're able to reduce waste in the country and improve the efficiency of power transmission, right? So it's all how you sort of articulate why you're doing what you're doing, and that becomes very, very important. One of the very beautiful quotes which I have come across, and it says, the two most important days in your life are the day you are born, which is your birthday, and the day you find out why you were born. It's extremely important for us to appreciate that each one of us can lead a very purposeful life, or we can just be an also ran, right? But Mark Twain brings this to our attention, that we need to really think about why we were born in this world, right? What has been our life purpose? And once we are able to understand this life purpose, then it gives us a lot of direction. Just like me, I'm sure each one of you, in the course of your business, have come across a crossroad. You don't know whether to do this or whether you should be doing that. I remember when I came back from Dubai after attending the Middle East Electricity Exhibition in the year around 2000. It was 2002, 2004, somewhere in that range. And I landed directly in Mumbai to attend the Electrama exhibition. And I was all charged to release the modular enclosure in the market. And I had done a lot of homework in that regard. And then my brother approached me. He was also there in the Electrama exhibition, and he's the guy who guided me into business. So, to a great extent, what he says, I give it a lot of weightage. And that was a time when there was a shift in the MK switches distributorship in Bangalore. And there was an opportunity for my trading company, Money Sales, to take up the distributorship of MK. And he just suggested it to me. But when he suggests it to me, I take it very seriously, because that's the kind of relationship I have with my brother. But what it did was, it derailed my entire goal of getting into the modular enclosures. And one thing intelligent in hindsight, when I looked, that I did, was I gave it up in just 1 year. And I said, no, I've made a wrong decision. This is not the path which I need to be looking at. And I got back into the switchboard and enclosure route. And then that has paid me rich dividends today, because I'm enjoying the journey, and it's the journey ultimately that matters. So it's also true that, greater your purpose, greater is the clarity. The kind of, if you read the autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi, you'll see what clarity he had at every point of decision which he had to take during the freedom struggle which India went through. That clarity comes with a greater purpose. the best way to find yourself, he says, Mahatma Gandhi says, is to lose yourself in the service of others. You try to, really focus on your life purpose, what you're here for, how you're going to be contributing to the world. And when you get lost in that, you actually find yourself. Such a beautiful saying. I really, really appreciate this quote, and I felt I should share it with you in this context. And, even from in my own life story, if I have to share with you, in the year 2007, I registered Modutec. And believe it or not, for 10 long years, I did not cut a single invoice in Modutec Ready Panels Private Limited. I was getting cold feet all the time. I was worried about the excise Raj, which was there in our country at that time. And I was also, not very, very clear about whether this is the right step for me to take or not. But at the same time, there was this passion which was surging inside me, saying that I have to do it. 2017, I landed myself, thanks to Eaton, with a order of 35 crores. It was for the Kia Motors. And I had to execute this order in just 5 months flat. This meant that I had to literally double my turnover month on month for those 5 months, which I did. And how did I do it is important for each one of you to appreciate. The switchgear was never a problem. We were able to scale. We did a lot of things, but end of what really made me to satisfy all the stakeholders in that particular project was the fact that my enclosures were modular and they were easily scalable. And when I completed that project to the satisfaction of all stakeholders, a thought struck to me very strongly. And, I told myself that, Ramani, it is not correct for you to go to your grave without having explored the Modutec idea. And that is when I started my invoicing. And then, things have really grown from strength to strength from there. I'm glad to share that this year over last year, we have grown at 60%. And we do hope that this growth will continue for at least another 3 to 4 years. And then let's see what happens. So when I went into Modutec, did I go there to make money? That wasn't my primary motive. I just like each one of you to appreciate this, that, our primary motive in business has to be in terms of serving the country, serving the community, serving the society, serving the world. And in that, when you come out with wanting to do your best with the knowledge which you have, and based on the need that is there in the marketplace, then what you do actually transforms in terms of not being just a business, but being an offering to the world. And when I said, what is my offering to the world, this phrase popped out, that I need to tell the world, how do I simplify panel building? And that is exactly what became the tagline for my company. Similarly, I would appreciate and I would invite each one of you to think about your businesses and understand what is it that each one of you are, coming forward to lay at the feet of your customers, lay at the feet of the market, lay at the feet of mankind, to take mankind from one location to the other location, right? So it is like, when we were in college, we never had a cell phone. I couldn't imagine that I could be in the car and, I could still talk to somebody in the US. And these kind of facilities was not possible. Today, why is it possible? Because somebody in the world said that they are going to serve mankind in uplifting the conveniences what mankind is experiencing. Similarly, each one of us, I feel, it is our spiritual responsibility to ensure that whatever we are best at, it can be a small, what they call the Anil Seve. In the Ramayana, you have even the squirrels come and support Lord Rama to build that bridge across the ocean. Even that small contribution, it makes a big difference. And, once we start looking at our business like that, then it transforms the way we feel about our business. And I'm sure you will also experience that the journey it suddenly becomes very beautiful. So when we look at business, although, I've said what all I have said, how many people are able to really take it in and implement it, it is represented in this pyramid. The bottom of the pyramid is indicative of the stage of business which most panel builders are in, and that is the survival stage. Survival stage is a stage where you don't know where your next salary check is going to come from. How are you going to pay the salaries? How are you going to pay the rental? And every month on month, it becomes a kind of a struggle to ensure that it goes. This guy didn't pay me. How can I pay my salary? So it becomes a very stressful journey. Slowly you learn, and then you get into the sustenance phase. There, okay, today I don't have a problem in terms of looking into my overheads. I have a fairly decent cash flow, but profitability is a big problem for me. So how do I look at ensuring that improves? And then when we apply our mind and we work towards it, we come to a stage of stability, that not only is your sales taken care of, not only is your overheads under control, but your profitability is also under fair control. So that takes you to a stage of stability. And then you go to a stage of success where you don't need to market yourself anymore. It's not that you can ever have the luxury of stopping to market yourself, but what I'm saying is that sales orders coming in, it's no longer such a big problem, right? I hope this resonates with at least a few of you, that we don't have to really be bothered about how we are going to be getting the next order, how we are going to be executing it. So that becomes a stage of success. Now, when you reach that particular stage of success, again, I say that it is your responsibility that you take and scale this business. The scaling of this business is something which, like, you have a family, you have children, right? And your child is really good in what it does. But then the child is not willing to share the knowledge with other children. How would you feel? Yeah, you wouldn't feel right. You wouldn't feel good about it, isn't it? Similarly, God above, He has given us a lot of strength, knowledge, experience, skill, and capability. So when we are successful, when we reach that successful stage in our business, it becomes our responsibility to scale the business and help mankind in a large manner. So this is very much the way which business scenario is today, and I'm sure many of you, or probably all of you, would be able to relate to this pyramid. Now, from taking this pyramid from a business angle, the next slide, I'm going to show you how this Y progression is actually happening in COSMA. Like, this is something which I'm sure all of you will be able to relate to. And it's not just businesses. Every institution, every family goes through this progression in the way of their evolution. COSMA started in 1988, and it started with the philosophy that we have to collaborate, not compete, right? And then this started becoming a slogan which said, uniting panel builders. Now, for panel builders, we have found time and again that there is a big need for us to unite together. Why? If you look at the Indian scenario today, you find that large companies are acquiring larger companies, and a monopolistic kind of a situation is happening in our country. Now, what happens when there is a monopoly? When there is a monopoly, naturally, the person who's got that monopoly, he kind of tends to take advantage of it. And in the process, what happens? Our survival game is likely to become more difficult, right? So therefore, it is very important for panel builders to come together and unite, because in this unity, there is a strength. We can fight, whether it is monopoly of switchgear manufacturers, whether it is a monopoly of metal manufacturers who are increasing the prices like crazy. A lot of reasons are given, but then when you look at a company like JSW or even Tata for that matter, over the last 2 years, they have clocked huge profitability. Now, where does that profitability come from? You know how much, in our own segment, there are very sad stories of how we have picked up an order and the prices have gone up, and we go back to the customer asking for an increased price. He doesn't agree. Now, out of no other choice, we willingly undergo the loss. Now, all these things can change if there is a unity amongst panel builders. I just want you to hold that thought in your mind that there is a window out there and we need to explore it. And if we are able to do that, then we get into the sustenance phase where we are now very united, and then we go into a path of learning and growing together. And that is what is happening now. Each one of us, the kind of success which COVID gave us in our Zoomnars is something amazing. The kind of networking and the kind of closeness which we as a COSMA family have felt during these exchanges is something unparalleled, right? And once we get that kind of a closeness with each other, then we slowly get into the stability phase. We start contributing to each other and we start supporting each other. We have started a WhatsApp group, and one person puts up a requirement in the WhatsApp group. What happens? Everybody else, spontaneously there is a rush to see how to help the other person, whether it is identifying the availability of a product in the market or whether it is to dispose a product what he has in excess. There is this spontaneous response. So this contributing and supporting each other is happening in COSMA today. Now, what we need to be doing is we need to be going into the success phase. Now, what I mean by this is that in the success phase, we don't go behind asking a panel builder to join COSMA. The panel builder, out of his own interest, he wants to join COSMA and he hunts out COSMA and he asks how to join, how to become a member, and how to contribute to COSMA. That is the stage where I would like to see COSMA evolving into. And then what happens when we all come together in large numbers like that? I'd like to remind the entire fraternity here. It's nice to see that there are 71 people in this Zoomnar. And it is a time when, I would like to remind ourselves about our goal that by 2025, our membership should have evolved from close to 500 members today to 2,500 members. And if we continue to do what we are doing, then this success is not going to be very elusive for us. It is going to happen, right? So for that, each one of us should be able to identify what is the purpose of COSMA. Now, the ultimate purpose of COSMA, as what I have been able to see it, is that COSMA becomes the standard, not only for the electrical industry locally, but also globally. I repeat, COSMA becomes the standard, not only for the electrical industry locally, but also globally. Now, it's just a thought which came to my mind, and I thought I would share it, that if COSMA has to really contribute to the world, then what should it be like? What are the culture there? What are the value systems there? What should we be believing in? And then, we have this quality committee. We have all aspects of what is important for a collaborative approach to panel building, and how does this help the panel builders at the lower rungs of the pyramid slowly evolve and come up, right? There could be a lot of checklists which we can freely distribute to the panel builders. We are also working on seeing if we can recommend a common ERP system which is going to be really cost effective. There are many softwares which we can support panel builders with in terms of their estimation and their control wiring, so on and so forth. Recently, I got to know that Schneider has invested in a company called IGE plus XAO. And this is a software which helps panel builders not only do their electrical schematics, but also it will help them to come out with a short circuit calculation, come out with a temperature rise calculation, so on and so forth. So can COSMA also have a committee which creates softwares like this. So there are many things which we can do once we have the strength, once we have the purpose, once we have the vision, right? So this is something what I just like to say, that whatever applies for a business equally applies for an institution. So I hope you all enjoyed that sharing, right? I really felt, and I said I must share this kind of a thought from the bottom of my heart. There is a beautiful approach which is taken by Japanese, and it's called ikigai. If you look at this beautiful way in which the Japanese first they say, understand what you love. Going by the same understanding of why, what, and how. So you understand what you love. This is very, very important. Now, you may love something, your son may love something else. So don't force your son to do what you love. That's the last thing you should do. Focus on yourself and understand what is it that you love. And then you understand what does the world need. The moment you understand this, then this automatically becomes the mission of your life. Yeah, so beautiful, isn't it? And then once you say what the world needs, and then you look at what can you get paid for. Ultimately, money is important and you need money. So when you have a combination of what you get paid for and what the world needs, that becomes your vocation or your job or your profession, right? Or, I mean, what gets you the money for the value which you offer to the world. And then when you look at what you get paid for, along with what you are good at, then that becomes a career for you, a profession. So there you become an expert at that, and then you evolve yourself there. And then when you look at what you are good at and what you love, then that is what is your passion. Now, in this simple diagram, we are able to understand how we need to be looking and, more importantly, identifying where we are coming from. So the moment we are able to identify, then we understand who we are for the world, right? Now, coming back to the context of panel builders, we need to constantly, therefore, understand what does the world need. So which means what does the customer want in terms of a panel builder's customer. And this, as I said, would apply for most industries. So we look at, first thing they expect is your on-time delivery. So how do you shape the decisions in your business to ensure that you are most of the time on time, right? So this is very, very important. There are a lot of dependencies in the panel industry, and the customer also understands it. But it also depends upon how often you are going to be on time, which means what? You need to be measuring, monitoring, and managing your on-time delivery. This becomes very critical. And then the customer wants competitive prices, and if possible, a little lesser than that, right? So how do we show value to the customer where the customer is looking at price? And this is a constant war between value and price which needs to be played. And it's important for us to understand how we win this game. And then we look at acceptable quality. Acceptable by whom? By the customer. Quality is also always defined by the customer. So is your quality in line with your customer base? This is very, very important for us to constantly understand. And then the after-sale service. My guru would always say that your after-sale service should be so perfect that your sales department becomes redundant. So that is again something which really touches the heart of a customer when you serve in the right time, in the right place, with the right solution. Value engineering is something which customers look up to you for. And this is the place you need to put on the hat of a consultant. You try and understand what is value to him, and then see how you can reduce cost without compromising on quality, increase reliability and convenience. And this relationship you have with the customer, he will automatically want to buy more and more from you. Group acceptance is very important. Sometimes you don't know who is the man. Man stands for the person with the money, the authority, and the need. MAN. The money, authority, and need. Now, the problem is that this man gets influenced also by a number of people. Like sometimes his customer dictates to him. Sometimes his consultant, guides him into saying that this is the panel builder to whom you have to place the order. Sometimes the circumstances such that the earlier panel was already supplied by a person, so the same person has to come into the scenario. Like this, we have to keep understanding how do you encourage your salespeople to do group selling. And then the accommodation of changes. Change is the only constant in the panel industry. Right from the day the inquiry comes to you, to the drawings getting ready, to the panel under manufacturing, to even after the panel goes to site, there can be changes. And instead of getting irritated with it, we have to be empathetic to understand that change happens because the customer's customer needed the change, right? So we need to therefore try and see how do we cope with the situation? How do we get prepared for that situation? How do we understand? How do we build our skill sets around that particular situation? And then the all pervading terms and conditions. There have been a number of discussions in COSMA as to how we can protect the interests of our members against payments which take a very long time to come. Slowly we are evolving there. Slowly we will become a force to reckon with, where when there's a call from a COSMA office to a customer, he has an influence to ask the customer to be fair to his vendor. So I'm hoping that those days will come, and as long as we stay united and work united, it will happen. And then we talk in terms of the design and aesthetics of a panel. This is very important, and a lot of customers expect it. And the latest trend is digitalization of the switchboard. On the switchboard, you have a QR code, and you scan it, you get the entire jataka of that particular panel. And similarly, sitting in a comfort of an air-conditioned cabin, you should be able to understand exactly where the power is being drawn beyond budget, where it is below budget, and what is it that you need to take in terms of action to tweak that particular situation. And last but not the least is energy optimization. There's a lot of action being taken there. Whatever we have to see how we can preserve it, how we can utilize it intelligently, and how do we ensure that energy is available for posterity also going forward. So from why, we need to therefore slowly progress to the what. Then the question comes, when we look at our business, with all this background, we look at our business, we need to understand what is stopping our progress, right? If we were to get 2x of the orders what we are having today, right? What is going to stop us from executing it? If we get 5x of the orders today, what is going to stop us from executing it? And for this, we need to study our manufacturing flow. Now, in the manufacturing pipeline, where you have right from estimation to getting the order, and then going through the design review meeting, to getting the design prepared and then approved by the customer, and then going for fabrication, powder coating, assembly, testing, and then the customer inspection comes, and then once again the routine testing, and then packing, logistics, and then dispatch. So now the important aspect is that when there is an inflow of 10 units per minute into your entire process flow, as what I had explained, if there is a gap of 5 units only per minute, say for example in the design phase, the order is getting piled up, then the problem is you'll get only 5 units in the dispatches of your panels. So as a panel builder, you'll have to continuously look at where is the constraint in your entire system, and as you tweak the constraint, then the flow increases. And there was this very interesting conversation I had with my own staff in the manufacturing. I was asking them, what is it that we need to be doing in order to improve our manufacturing flow? So my operations, the manufacturing head, he joined us recently. So he was expressing, sir, first we have to focus on the CNC machine. CNC machine, we have to ensure that it is continuously loaded, and then automatically the flow will happen. And I had to really explain to him why this thought is very erroneous, and why, if you go on loading the CNC machine, and after the CNC, suppose there is a problem with the bending machine, or if there is a problem with the powder coating, you have to slow down your CNC machine till you attend to the problem with your powder coating or with your bending machine. Now, this is the intelligence which is required in the manufacturing flow, and this is very beautifully brought out by Mr. Eliyahu Goldratt. He's an Israeli who wrote this book, The Goal, and that's another book which one must read. It beautifully brings out the theory of constraints and how we must attack the constraint in the factory. So the first thing when I go into a meeting with any of the departments in my organization, I start and end with, okay, what are your constraints today? And when I end it also, I check, are there any other constraints? And then only the meeting gets wrapped up. So it's very important, because ours is a kind of a customized business, unlike a business which is like manufacturing automobiles, where lean manufacturing plays a very important role. In our kind of business of panel manufacturing, which is very customized, it is agile marketing, agile manufacturing, which is very important, which has a lot to do with this constraint management. So constantly we have to keep looking at where is the constraint. Is it in sales? Is it in design? Is it in infrastructure? Even when, sometimes we have faced, like I told you about that Kia Motors order, when we did have an infrastructural constraint. So what we did was, we selected two subcontractors, and the criteria for selecting them was that they have sufficient space in their factory. And when they had sufficient space in their factory, they were also able to accommodate this suddenly large inflow of order and execution. Similarly, switchgear and accessories. Is this a constraint in your business? Today, fortunately, we have multiple brands and multiple dealer outlets for us to source that. So that generally doesn't become the, excepting for barring some unique rare moving items, it is generally not a constraint. Manpower, we are able to handle manpower constraints by suddenly infusing contract labor into our factory, or taking piece workers who are very proficient in busbar working and control wiring, etc., into our factory for that particular project and execute it and then close it. But what generally becomes a big constraint, as what I have seen, is your enclosure and accessories, because these are again customized. And if you're in the welded system, then one weld you put and then the customer makes a change, it becomes very difficult to handle it. And if there is one small communication gap between us and the person who's doing the enclosure, it becomes a big problem to correct that. So how do you simplify your enclosures? How do you standardize your enclosures? And how do you do that with a very efficient three-dimensional software, which we are going to be releasing from Modutec by the middle of this year? These are all aspects which we can take up on a one-to-one basis. But this is essentially how we need to be looking at from releasing the constraint in a manufacturing flow. And then once we identify that this really is the biggest constraint, how do we arrive at SMART goals? Now, SMART, I'm sure most of you are aware of this acronym. S is for being specific. What is that specific problem you have? How are you going to be handling that? How do you make it measurable? How do you make it actionable, realistic? And then you have a time-bound nature of resolving the problem. So this is how you progress. And this is why I say that entrepreneurs, the journey is the reward. When you go through this kind of a journey of trying to understand the various difficulties and intelligently try to approach it and resolve it, that journey itself becomes very interesting, satisfying, and takes you from point A to point B very beautifully. Now, just let us have a look at how COSMA has done this. Even amongst COSMA, we have put our efforts to understand where is the constraint, what is the process which we need to do to evolve from where we are to where we want to be. And that is how we have got into Zoomnars, right? So this really brings us all together very beautifully. Now, we said this is not enough. We have, for the first time in the history of COSMA, we have said we have to be participating in an exhibition. And then we are going to be doing this in the month of June with IPMA exhibition in Mumbai. So it is not only participation in an exhibition, but it is also a message to each and every panel builder that it is critical that we look at marketing very seriously in whatever we are doing. And then we look at associating with associations. It's not enough if we are just with ourselves. Anand very beautifully brought out this point, and he's just didn't stop at the place of an idea. He actually went out there, led the whole way, supported, of course, by so many others, in terms of understanding how do we do this. And we have signed agreements with several associations, and all these things will help COSMA evolve to the next level. He's not only stopped with other manufacturing associations, he has also taken it to institutions, educational institutions. And that's something amazing. See, all these ideas automatically pop out. How does it come? It comes when your why is very clear, when your purpose of what you're doing, becomes more and more clear, then automatically it gives you that much more clarity of what direction you need to be looking at. For the first time again in COSMA, we have appointed vice chairmen in different parts of India with the purpose of ensuring that attendance is the membership of COSMA is increased, because we believe that unity is strength, right? So unless and until we have specific vice chairmen focused on this purpose of increasing the membership, so these things are ideas which have come up. The entire office of COSMA has been renovated. Now, where does this energy come from? It's an energy, right? And this energy comes from, we are driven by the vision, right? And what's more, we have also started a building fund. Why? Because we want COSMA to have its own office. When you have your own office, then you are able to have a longer, kind of consistency in purpose in terms of what you're doing, without getting disturbed from other vagaries of the marketplace in terms of the rental scenario. And at the same time, you're able to invest more and more in meaningful investments inside your own building. So I look forward to that day when COSMA would have its own building, and we would all take this journey of establishing this purpose of becoming the standard for the world that much faster. COSMA has also come out with a beautiful website. It's evolving. For those of you who have not seen it, it's cosmaindia.co.in. And it's a website which also gives you opportunity to participate, gives you a banner ad provision in that software, in that website. And all the income which COSMA gets from the banner ads will go into our building fund, right? So this is the purpose-driven mission of COSMA, which we are all going forward. And we just need to be inspired by one another. There's a beautiful guru called Brian Tracy from the US, and he says the formula to become successful is very simple. He says, just look at successful people, and that's something which COSMA has always believed in. We have invited a number of people to give talks about their life history. Right here in the picture, you're able to see Mr. Vijay Saheta of ConnectWell. He has also shared his life history with us. We have had Mr. Gopal Kabraji speak to us about his story, and so many more have shared their success stories. Now, what happens is when we hear the story, all we need to do is understand what works for us and then copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. This is what Brian Tracy says. Success is as simple as copy paste. And there are so many qualities, so many value systems, so many principles which makes these people successful. And that is what we have to pick up and then implement in whatever way it works for us in our businesses. So we not only do that, we also recognize in terms of COSMA awards. Recently, one of our COSMA awardee, Mr. Sitaram of Micron Electricals, was honored on the first page of Industry Outlook. And this is something which reinforces that, yes, what COSMA thinks, it has been in the right direction. And all these interactions what we have, it really brings out the closeness amongst the COSMA circles. And this automatically leads us to discuss about outings. Now, outings can be business oriented in terms of factory visits where we learn a lot, and it can also be in terms of going for holidays together. And I'm really looking forward to this holiday we have planned to the Northeast. Our Virendra Singh of Assam Electricals has been repeatedly inviting us, and Kaziranga is a beautiful nature-oriented tourist spot, which I think it is worth for all of us to see. And doing it together as a COSMA family would be that much more energizing. Now, whatever I've spoken about for COSMA, you can also run a parallel on it for your own business. In your own business also, the moment you sharpen your focus on what is your purpose, what is your why, then all these aspects of what you need to be doing in order to actualize your vision, it automatically becomes that much more simpler for you to appreciate and take forward. So that brings me to the end of my first step. And I just wanted to give you a peep into the second step and the third step of what I'd love to share with all of you. Should you all, of course, be interested and you all saw value in what I shared with you today. The second step is the foundation of execution. See, execution is very, very important. A lot of people have a good mission, good vision, good purpose, but executing it, you need to have a very clear understanding of who you are. So you have to discover who you are, and that is the first step in the path of execution. And then you have to understand, okay, this is who I am. So how do I manage myself, right? There are multiple areas of pulls and pressures which a businessman experiences. So amongst all these pulls and pressures, how do I manage myself? This is the second step. And then having managed myself, how do I manage others? How do I manage my customer? How do I manage my vendor? How do I manage my bankers? How do I manage my wife, right? There are so many aspects which we need to be looking at in terms of how we manage. So this is the second part of what I felt I should share. And the third one is the essential habits and discipline. So all knowledge can be knowledge, but knowing is not doing, right? Doing is doing. So when doing has to be doing, then you need to pick up certain habits which are very, very essential, pick up certain disciplines which are very, very essential. So I'll come to an elaboration of this a little, okay, I'll probably take 5 minutes. Stop is a system which helps you to stop every 45 days to 60 days in your business, look back, review what you have done, and then discuss about what went right, what went wrong, and then realign yourself towards the purpose of your organization. And in the pyramid, this purpose is an evolving thing which one needs to understand. So STOP is actually an acronym. It stands for the strategic meetings which we compulsorily need to have every 45 days to 60 days in our organization. It helps us realign our purpose and gives the head of departments, you get them all together, and then each one makes their presentation and what went right, what went wrong, what needs to be done further. And this exercise can be a really rewarding exercise. T is an acronym for tactical meetings, which has to happen once a week, where you review again what were your breakthroughs, what are your breakdowns, and what are the tasks which you have laid out going forward for the next week. This has to happen not only between the entrepreneur and his direct reportees, but also from the second level of direct reportees to their direct reportees, as well as peer-to-peer. So the tactical meeting happening has to be ideally in a minutes of meeting and coordinated and followed up by the HR department. Then we have the operations meeting, and this is something which has to happen every single day in different departments. It's a 10-minute standing meeting where we understand, what is it that is going well, what is not going well, and what is the tasks on hand, which needs to be given a lot of attention. And P is for once you do this, then your performance gets accelerated. So this is nothing but a performance management tool, which I would be happy to share further in detail. And then cash, there are about 6 levers which you need to be constantly monitoring, managing, and taking care of, so that your cash flow cycle is pakka. In fact, the other day I was talking to Sri Anand, who's one of the big dealers in Mumbai, and he was sharing with me that his business of around 500-600 crores, he does it with zero working capital. And he explained to me how he does it with zero working capital. And that is something which, he's a real guru for me, Brijnandan Mundra, a very intelligent person. And it's really worth discussing with him how he runs his business. He's an amazing person. Then we come to the flow, which is the manufacturing flow. I've explained to you about the constraint, so we can go further in detail about it. There are 5 steps to this, and each step, how do we take up and move forward with it. R&D is a much often neglected part of our business, and that is something which again needs to be given focus, because that's again a responsibility we have to ensure that what we know, we bring as knowledge, apply ourselves to the market need, and see how we can do what we're doing better, and then even better, and then even better. So this is a constant investment which we have to do willingly, happily, and with purpose. And the last one is SYS, which is Sharpen Your Saw. Constant, continual learning is something which, it is a must and should for an entrepreneur in particular. An entrepreneur not only needs to have a lot of courage to be an entrepreneur, but he also needs to have a lot of curiosity. Curious mind is a learning mind. And as you keep learning, then you keep evolving. And this, my dear friend, is something which, I have personally been doing this continuously, and I have seen that it pays very rich dividends. So all of this is, in a nutshell, the 3 steps what we can take to simplify, standardize, and scale our business, be it a switchboard business or any other business. Yeah. So thank you so much for your patient hearing. I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to get questions if there are. Over to Anand.
Yeah, it's a great actually journey of your motivational lecture. I think you are the motivational guru of COSMA, and you have got a lot of knowledge to circulate among ourselves. So definitely, this is the first lecture. I think there will be multi lectures in this total year of Ramani ji to share his knowledge to all, not only to the COSMA but out of COSMA members also. 2 things he has mentioned. It was only there for 30 seconds, but it was important. Everybody should just keep it in mind. He has mentioned one book, The Goal. That goal book, I think everybody should read, because that is affecting the total business of everybody. So रमनी जी, जरा आप थोड़ा उसके बारे में जरा थोड़ा और डिटेल बताएंगे तो अच्छा रहेगा. Then we'll go to question and answer, because that is a very important book actually.
Sure. This the book is actually brought out in a novel form, and it talk about the protagonist who is there in his office, and then suddenly he finds that there is a car which comes into his factory, and everybody gets very tense, and it is his boss who has come from the head office. And then he really expresses his complete dissatisfaction in about how this factory was running. And he looks into the eye of this protagonist and he says, look, you're given just 3 months. Either you turn around this company or we shut it down. And he goes out. And then the next scene, is about this guy who goes on top of a mountain, which is very close to his factory, sits down there. He gets a perspective of the entire factory. And then he thinks about the number of years he has been in this town, about how his children have studied in this place, and if the business gets shut down, then he wouldn't know what else he has to do. And so he's literally pushed against the wall. And then he comes back with a determination that he is going to be turning this company around. And he then comes back to the factory, brings in all his key employees, about 5-6 of them, and then he explains to them that this is what is the situation, what is your opinion. And then each one of them comes across their points of view, and then how as a team they kind of discover that if the flow has to improve, then you have to watch the constraint. And when they walk into the shop floor, just like I was explaining to you about that CNC machine, they found that the most expensive machine out there, it had so much of material which it had processed, whereas in the other parts of the factory, there were a lot of constraints which were not attended to. Then how they sort of went around clearing up the mess, bringing in this system, and how different work experience, in between they talk about his family, about how his wife is unhappy about the amount of time he is spending with her, and how he also is helpless because he has to attend to this, and how she walks out, and then how he brings her back ultimately at the end, and how he goes for a picnic with his son. And there, the way the children go on the trekking gives him an idea, and then how he comes back to the factory, implements that idea, and how he's able to improve the supply chain. It's called the critical chain, and Ilya Goldratt has written a separate book on that. And after he has written all these books, then he realizes that there is a possibility that the constraint can move to sales. So he has brought out a book on how you make an irrefusable offer to your customer. So that is another book on sales and marketing, and how the constraints on that has to be attended to. So this is the story, and it's a book which it's very difficult to put down. You take it up, it grips you, and then in between he has a guru who keeps talking to him and doesn't give him any advice as such, but asks him questions which makes him think differently. And just that asking questions and making him think differently spurs up something in him which makes him to implement aspects which is very helpful for his company. And how at the end of this 3-month period, he brings about so much of profitability, for the company, that he's actually promoted and taken to the head office, and the story goes in a very, very touching way.
So great, sir. It is a really good book, and I propose each and every COSMA member should purchase it, go through it, digest it. Also about the zero working capital Ramani was talking about. Is it, Ramani, connected to anything about the Toyota Way by Jeffrey Liker? Is it something like that or something different?
It is only to do with 3 elements in your business: your creditors, your debtors, and your inventory. Now, if you are able to manage your inventory, say within 60 days, and if you are able to manage your creditors within 90 days, and if you are able to manage your debtors within 30 days, then actually the cycle is that you have 30 plus 60, and there you have 90, and therefore you don't need working capital as long as you're able to manage that well. And if you're able to take 120 days from your vendors, you're actually having minus cash flow. So, I think one day we should, I'll be happy to call Brijmohan Mundra to one of our Zoomnars, and he will also be happy to address this matter to each one of us, and it'll be a very, very educative session.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Vishal bhai.
So this note we will conclude today's meeting, and we'll see you on next Sunday. Okay. Have a nice Sunday. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.